Good morning, everyone. It's a bright and beautiful day outside, perfect for time with God. Today we're going to be in Luke chapter 5, and I want to see what we can learn today and spend time in worship and praying and see what the Lord has for us. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you later on in the video. Hello again. That was a really fruitful study. I didn't do the whole chapter. I'll do the whole chapter after this video, but so far from Luke chapter 5, verses 1 through 11, it has been really, really, really good. I'm really enjoying what I'm learning so far, and it just goes to show that sometimes you don't need to have all the big fancy books. Sometimes it's just you and God, and I've really been trying to, limit. It's definitely okay to use commentaries. It's definitely okay to use resources, but don't use them as a crutch. There's tons of people out there that say that it's totally not okay to use them at all, but I want to try to steer from this idea that it's all got to be academic, because there for a while I was treating Bible study as an academic kind of thing, as a chore, as an obligation, if you will. But I really like what has been happening so far, and I want to share a little bit with you. Alright, here is my Bible. And as you can see, I've marked up a good bit, but there's one particular section that I want us to really zone in on. But it's when a few of the disciples were called to follow Jesus after they've been stuck in a mundane, kind of boring job all their lives. Now here Jesus comes along and, brightens things up a little bit. So, we're seeing a big crowd here, and they're gathering around. And now we meet Simon. And I'm thinking that's probably Simon Peter, based on the other accounts in the other three Gospels. And I do want to say that this is Luke chapter 5. And I'm studying through verses 1 through 11. So now, we're going to get into the really deep part. That was not a pun at all. That was not intended. But this passage brought to mind a song that was made popular by Hillsong. And I really want to go a little bit, I want to dive a little bit into this. So it says that when he had left speaking, so when Jesus had got done teaching the crowd, he said unto Simon, "Launch out into the deep and let your nets down for a draught." So, let your nets down for a catch. There's going to be a lot of times where, and also too, this reminds me, I'm sorry about the side tangent, this reminds me so much of the story of where Peter is called out onto the water when Jesus called him out by faith. But Jesus is telling him here to launch out into the deep. There's going to be a lot of times where Jesus is going to call you out into an unknown situation where you're just going to have complete, total faith. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know why he's going to do it or why he's telling you to do this. You got to trust him, because there might be something pretty good on the other side. In verse 5 it says, "And Simon answering said unto him, Master, we have toiled all the night and have taken nothing. Nevertheless, at thy word I will let down the net." The note I made over here was out of the song, obviously, and it says, "Where feet may fail." So Jesus sometimes is going to call us out into situations where it looks like we're going to fail. where it looks like we don't know what we're doing. We don't know how to do it. We don't have the resources, human resources. But Jesus simply calls us to go out there by faith. And that's the whole point of this whole idea of faith. Because Peter is now saying, nevertheless, at thy word, I will let down the net. So he's abandoning every human instinct he has to just sit down and grumble and complain and be afraid. But here's what happens when you step out of faith. When they had done this, they enclosed a great multitude of fishes, and their net brake. God blessed them so much that they had no idea what to do with it. Their nets were actually breaking. And the song over here says, Spirit, lead me where my faith is without borders. So nevertheless, at thy word, I will let down the net. Let me walk upon the waters. Let my faith be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Now up here, when Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' feet, saying, Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord. And then it talks about how he was astonished at the take of the fish, and it was just absolutely incredible story. And then it scoots on to about verse 10. And it says, And Jesus said unto Simon, Fear not, from henceforth thou shalt catch men. I made a little note up here, and there's a Bible verse that essentially says the same thing, where it says that if God can trust you with the little things, he'll trust you with the big things. That's what this is all about. He wanted to test his obedience. And now Peter's going to get a chance to do the big things. And those big things we would later see in the book of Acts, where he's out doing the things that Jesus called him to do. So instead of catching fish now, he's going to catch men. And if you are new to the Bible, that simply means that he's going to be an apostle. He's going to preach the gospel. And when they had brought their ships to land, here's the key, they forsook all and followed him. I want to talk to you a little bit about this whole thing where they forsook all and followed him. I had a little thought yesterday, and I had a discussion with somebody about it yesterday too. It was really good talk. But also, can we appreciate the mug? Sometimes it comes off backwards on cam. Hopefully it's not. But it says Jesus and coffee. I found it for like $5 at Walmart. But it says that when they brought their ships to land, so when they brought their work to a close, they forsook everything. They abandoned it. There is a song that I grew up with, and we sang it a lot in the Easter programs. It was by Stephen Curtis Chapman. It said, For the Sake of the Call is the name of the song. And it said, we will abandon it all for the sake of the call. What are you willing to abandon? What are you willing to sacrifice for that time with Jesus? Like this morning, I don't know what happened, but I did not hear my alarm clock. But when I do, I have to ask my question. I have to ask a simple question. Am I willing to sacrifice that sleeping time, that resting time, in order to rest in Jesus? Because that's the most important thing, is to rest in Jesus, right? We can rest physically all day long, but we're still going to be tired. We're still going to be who knows what. But when we rest in Jesus, that's where our stamina comes from, because he's the one that gives us strength. But what are you willing to abandon? What are you willing to sacrifice? But that's not the big point that I talked about with somebody yesterday. So it says, and they followed him. So people can say that they believe in Jesus all day. Like, I hear people all the time, even non-believers, they'll say, oh yeah, absolutely, I believe in Jesus. He was real, he was a good man, he was a teacher, he was a prophet. Even people in the Bible did that. So people can believe in Jesus all day long. They can say they believe in Jesus. But here's the bottom line. Do you follow? It's great to believe in Jesus. And Romans even says if you confess with your mouth that you believe in Jesus, then you're going to be saved. However, we have to come to a point where we get out of the mental belief. Like the whole thing where I was talking about Bible study being an academic thing. We need to go from a mental knowledge, academic kind of thing. We need to get out of that and start following. So that means actually practicing and living out the way that Jesus lived. Start reading your Bible and figuring out, okay, what does it have to say about this? How do I live a certain way? How do I get out of a certain sin? You know, that's what he's talking about by following him. They took off, it says that they forsook all. That means that they left their old path. They were willing to leave their own jobs. They were willing to sacrifice a job for Jesus. And that's pretty extreme. That's pretty radical. And sometimes I take it as a compliment when people call us as believers, they call us radicals. And that can be a compliment because that's what Jesus calls us to do, right? He calls us to be radical. He calls us to be different. Paul would say that he calls us to be peculiar. In a worldly sense, peculiar can mean strange or weird. But isn't that the whole point? That he calls us to be separate. He calls us to come out of the world and be like him. We're supposed to be different. We're supposed to be weird because people are going to need to see that difference in us. They're going to know what it is we've got that the world can't offer, that the world can't satisfy. And I feel like that's what Luke chapter 5, those few verses have taught me today. And it's incredible, absolutely incredible. If you just sit down and listen and ask God, I say, just teach me, Lord, teach me today. What do you want me to know? What do you want me to put into practice? And not rely so much on the commentary and rely more on the Spirit. And I may go back into the commentary later and see what else it has to say, you know. Like, there's a name where it talks about he stood by the lake of Gennesaret. I want to see if the name of the lake has any meaning, because sometimes names have meanings and take you deeper into the text. But anyway, I'm just rambling now, and I just love these little rambles because it just sends you down rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole. I can sit here all day and do rabbit holes. But the whole gist is paying attention to when God calls you out into the deep. When he says, launch out into the deep. He's saying, I want you to do the impossible because I can make it possible. That's essentially what he's saying. And we just have to step out of faith and trust that he's going to do what he says he's going to do. Well, I hope you enjoyed that kind of video, that style. It was a more casual, maybe vlog style, I don't know. But if you like that kind of video, let me know, because I enjoyed filming that. I do want to make a little interjection here about where this ministry is going, where I hope it will go. I don't know if you noticed this whole theme throughout the video where I talked about academic versus worship, academic versus belief and faith. And following Jesus. There are a lot of channels out there that already focus on the academics, teaching you how to use the commentaries and how to use the resources and whatnot. There's a lot of that already out there, and I feel like I'm just losing to that competition. And it's not a competition at all, but it's just the way how marketing works and, running stuff like this. But I want to focus more on the worship aspect, making this worshipful, making this time with Jesus, turning it into the quiet time that it's supposed to be. So let me know what you think and where you think this channel should go, what kind of videos I should do with that in mind. Let me know what you want to see and figure out what I can do. So, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. By the way, I'm sorry, another ramble. I was supposed to finish Colossians a while back, that video series, if you've been watching that. I've lost my notes. I don't know where they went to. They just upped and walked off, I guess. But please pray I can find those notes that I can finish that. And yeah. Whoops. Anyway. Hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.